Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, distinguished members of the committee. At the outset, we firmly hold that Israel should be held accountable for the protracted occupation of the Palestinian territory and responsible to respect, protect, and fulfill Palestinians' human rights without any act or practice of racial discrimination as prescribed by Cerd. However, since 1967, Israel demolished more than 26,000 Palestinian homes in the occupied Palestinian territory, thus effectively foreclosing any viable Palestinian state, the realization of Palestinian self-determination, and further solidifying Israeli domination in illegal settlement expansion and Judaization of the occupied territory. Such policies violate fundamental human rights and international law, such as the commitments taken by state parties to Cerd, and constitute a major obstacle to achieving justice, peace, and reconciliation between the peoples of the region. In 2011, a record year of displacement, a total of 622 Palestinian structures were demolished by Israeli authorities, of which 36% were family homes, resulting in more than 1,000 people displaced, almost double the number for 2010. The Jordan Valley, the strategic land reserve for a Palestinian state, now mostly expropriated by Israel, sustained the largest number of demolitions, with 199 structures demolished and 401 people displaced. Effective remedies are not provided, forcing families off the land and often rendering them unable to secure a source of livelihood. This is particularly severe in the hurting communities, such as the Bedouin, and the sedentary villages, which are often located in remote areas. In fact, as we are speaking, demolitions are taking place in the Jordan Valley, along with more than 80 structures demolished from the beginning of 2012, displacing over 200 people. Mr. Chairperson, house demolitions and forced evictions are a form of inhumane and degrading treatment, with severe psychological consequences for men, women, and children. Palestinian refugees and internally displaced persons who remain displaced are also victims of apartheid by virtue of the ongoing denial of the right to return to their homes in safety and dignity. Mr. Chairperson, we hold that Israel's policies and practices vis-à-vis Palestinian East Jerusalemites constitute institutionalized discrimination and domination of one population over the other, with the intent to perpetuate this domination through strengthening the numbers and socio-economic well-being of one population at the expense of another. The maintenance of a demographic balance based on ethnicity or nationality constitutes prima facie an illegal and repugnant practice of discrimination that is reminiscent of the motivation behind policies of racial segregation and apartheid. What is more, Israel's discriminatory planning and housing policies and practices in East Jerusalem, including administrative home demolitions and discriminatory residency policies, have set into motion a process of ethnic displacement of the Palestinian population of East Jerusalem. Moreover, destruction of protected property amounts to a war crime. Mr. Chairperson, distinguished committee members, in Area C of the West Bank, we are witnessing a process of ethnic displacement and Judaization that has led to a situation in which many members of that population leave the area to areas A and B, which are under Palestinian Authority control, not necessarily by choice, but due to the lack of viable alternatives. Israel's policies also create a situation not only of displacement, but also of de facto forced deportation, which may rise to the level of a war crime. Additionally, they constitute a violation of the UN Convention on the Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid of 1973. Despite Israel's commitment in the Cerd to eliminate racial discrimination in all its forms, and to guarantee the right of everyone without distinction as to race, color, national or ethnic origin to equality before the law, notably in the enjoyment of the right to housing and development, Israel's housing policy in Area C makes enjoying this basic right nearly impossible. In practice, construction is currently permitted in less than 1% of the area. The overwhelming majority of Area C is allocated to the expansion of Israeli settlements and military installations. Mr. Chairperson, distinguished committee members, ICAD calls on the State of Israel to dismantle its system of apartheid over the Palestinian people, to repeal all discriminatory laws and practices, and to seize forthwith acts persecution against Palestinians in the occupied Palestinian territory and Israel proper. ICAT calls for an end to the occupation of the Palestinian territory and a prompt realization of Palestinians' right to national self-determination, economic, social, and cultural rights, and an immediate cessation of the demolition of Palestinian houses, schools, and infrastructure, which causes displacement and dispossession. Finally, we call for all refugees and internally displaced persons which have been forcibly displaced to be allowed to repatriate, return to their homes in safety and dignity, and be given compensation for any harm they have suffered, including the destruction of land, homes, and property. We ask of the committee to adopt these recommendations and along with others in our parallel report and register them in its concluding observations. I thank you for your attention.